Hello, this is Sherman here. I am a 10th grade humanities teacher in San Francisco, California. I am also a big techie. I believe that technology can solve our racial equity gap in American public schools. Today I'm going to be discussing the AUP policy for SFUSD. The AUP policy, Accepted Use Policy, is a technology policy signed by anybody who signs on to your school's email account, use their district technology. So today we're going to talk about my school district's AUP. An AUP is an acceptable use policy. So today I'm going to go over the policy for you and just highlight a couple things that I have some questions about. So number 2, this is SFUSD as property. All files stored on SFUSD equipment and backup devices are considered to be property of the SFUSD, and materials developed by staff in the course of carrying out their professional responsibilities on district time shall be the property of SFUSD. In other words, the district owns your lessons. If you developed them, your materials, your projects, and they're stored on District Drive, which you need to have them stored on in order to submit work or have your students submit your work through Google Classroom, the district owns those lessons. Another part of that is neither hardware nor software configuration can be changed without specific permission from the Department of Technology, and you have to do a service request to do it. Because, God forbid you knew how to do those things, then you avoid waiting for the 4 technicians who have a wait list about 3 weeks out, so they'll be with you in about a month. But if you knew how to do it, that would be far too self-sufficient. Next is use is a privilege, and this is perhaps the one I have the biggest beef with. During my class this week at USF, we got to talk about digital ethics, and I had a strong push against it. There was just something in me that was, this is a power trip, this is not useful, and I didn't actually know what, because honestly, when I signed my AUP agreement for my district, I didn't read it. And I had a meeting with some top tech people in my district this week, and we were talking about the acceptable software that my district approves and the policies around that. And so we got to talking about that, and this very much came alive in my world this week. So when I got to this one, it made all of my doubt and the pit of my stomach responses to reading my first tech ethics policies. My gut feeling was right. Number 3 is use is a privilege. Use of the district's computing and networking resources is a privilege. This goes right back to my gut feeling that digital ethics and things like an AUP, it's a power complex. Knowledge is not a privilege, it's a right. And yes, in 2019, the internet is a form of knowledge. Love it or hate it, more than 53% of Americans consume their news from social media or a news website. And considering that teens spend, on average, 9 hours each day consuming social media, it seems a bit tyrannical about labeling technology as a privilege, especially if tech is being used to close the huge racial equity gap in education. So that's what that statement really is about, is knowledge is a privilege. And remember, it can be taken away. That's what that statement really is about. That was perhaps the one I had the most pushback with. Number 5, no expectation of privacy. Users of the SFUSD computer network and system, including but not limited to email and the internet, have no explicit or implicit right of privacy. Cool. We work with kids. I have no problem with this one. Internet service providers. While on SFUSD sites, staff must access the internet only through SFUSD network. All internet traffic must pass through SFUSD network where access controls and related to security measures. So, great, we have to use your server. I don't have a problem with that. But who is our internet service provider, and why is that not listed on this document? What does their contract with the district look like? Can ICE or can the local PD access district information, including but not limited to the location of students upon their protected sign-in to their SFUSD account? Where is that information? Where can I find more information on that? Again, not listed. This is perhaps the most ironic of all of them. Number 8, The year is 2019. The location, San Francisco Bay, right next door to Silicon Valley. Home, we can pretty much call it home of the tech movement. I will go so far as to say home of the tech movement. Number 8, privacy cannot be guaranteed in a network environment. SFUSD is telling me, is telling families, is telling students that their privacy cannot be guaranteed in a network environment. Medical, financial, and tech industries seem to have their privacy guaranteed on their networks. So public school kids don't get their privacy guaranteed by this very institution that's supposed to protect them. This rule is basically letting students and families know that school is not responsible for your child's privacy or safety online. And actually, I think this is the one AUP that if parents and families and caring adults could hold the district, that I would want in there. I would want there to be a district policy that my district signs for me that says, as a school providing my child with access to the internet, we guarantee their privacy because privacy is number one and our student safety online is number one. Considering the amount of online talk about suicides, about mass shooting, we should be able to guarantee, this should be a priority. If we do not have a private network, if we do not have a network that has red flags for things like this, we are doing a disservice to our families, we are doing a disservice to our students and to society. This is not an acceptable cop-out. But it gets better. Liability. Number 10. SFUSD makes no assurances of any kind, express or implied, regarding any computernet or internet service provider. Then why do we have a list of acceptable apps? If you cannot guarantee the privacy of information or give families and students some kind of assurance that the providers you approved are going to keep them safe, why do we have this process where you have to approve apps? I'm just going to point back to tech ethics, or policies like this having involved technology and ethics are all about the power. You can only use the tools we approve because they meet our rigorous standards. Oh yeah, and we won't be held accountable for what our standards are. What? That doesn't even make any sense. One last thing I want to leave you with. Number 14. Users may not make arrangements for or complete the installation of any physical, logical connections or make alterations to the existing SFUSD network unless approved by the Department of Technology. Because God forbid we start learning from the kids and they hack the network and somehow they're able to guarantee student privacy. What we need to realize from a district's perspective is, for the first time ever, things are flipped. Children are better at tech than we are. We know technology is how they spend their time. And if we don't learn from them, and if we don't include them, and we keep putting out policies that seems like tech is a privilege, not a language, and we keep denying tech to underprivileged kids and expecting less from kids who didn't grow up with access to tech, we're doing them a disservice. And quite frankly, we're not being honest with ourselves. We can learn from them. There's been a whole city that has been displaced by gentrification because of a tech boom, because we didn't prepare our high school students to work in tech. We can now. This is our opportunity. And when we start examining policies like this, we really start to see what is at the heart of our equity struggle and how technology plays a role in that equity struggle. But tech can be used for good. And it's in examining policies like this through an equity lens and really think about the power structures that are at play when things like this are created. Only then we'll be able to dismantle the very system that is not meant for our kids to succeed in. Thanks for listening.